What's up guys, YST here and welcome back to another Raid Shadow Legends video. And today, we are live on the test server to showcase Greathoof Loriaca, who is going to be the fragment fusion starting from tomorrow, Thursday the 8th. And she comes in the form of a cow from the Skinwalkers faction. I must say that the aesthetics of her, really cool. But I was so surprised at the size of her. She is tiny in game, literally very close to Cornelia's size, so maybe she could be like a dwarf cow. But what we're going to be doing today is talking about the overall utility, do I feel like she's a great champion, and just having fun with her while we have the access, right? So let's get right into it. So on the A1 with Deprive, she attacks one enemy 2 times, and each hit will have a 50% chance once booked of stealing one random buff. Now, when we start to think about where can this be useful, well, some standouts for me would be the Hydra Boss. Potentially, if your buffs get stolen or if they're placing buffs, you can go through and potentially steal some of those back. Very similar to the Nari the Lucky A1, which these champions actually have a lot of similarities in my opinion. But also in the Doom Tower where buffs are being placed on the enemies and you might want to be stealing some of those. Can actually pay to her advantage with the passive as well, where she can get some turn meter fill when they expire. So the synergy between the passive and the A1 does have some decent use for progression here. On the A2 with the Greathoof Stampede, she attacks all enemies and has a 100% chance of placing a 50% decreased resistance debuff for 2 turns. Now, the implementation of decreased resistance, there's not a lot in the game. Like there is Supreme Kale, who's a Void Legendary. There is Nari the Lucky, who also places decreased accuracy in the same skill. And then there is Fairest, who's an Epic. And then there's Deliana, who was a free daily login 7-day champion. And they all place it in their own ways, but none of them are Spirit Affinity yet. So she stands as the first one from this affinity to place this debuff. She'll also fill this champion's turn meter by 10% for each decreased resistance debuff placed by this skill. So in a hypothetical scenario, if you're facing the Hydra heads and you manage to place it on all of them, that's going to be a 40% turn meter increase for this champion alone. So it does have a decent synergy, allows you to come through and cycle it more efficiently. But at the moment, let me know, is this a skill that you kind of bank on? Like you would be using this for maybe the Iron Twins, but unfortunately the strategies for that boss is very limited with block damage options or Geomancer. And I would find it hard to kind of bring this in because it's not like it's unresistible. You still need to build the accuracy thresholds on Greathoof in order for it to be effective. So for me personally, with these kind of debuffs, I wish there was like an easier way to place it, or just non-resistible would make it way better for me. But as it stands, decreased resistance, maybe in the future of Raid, maybe the new Hydra Boss difficulties where we might be needing increased accuracy, decreased resistance. Champions like this may be coming into effect if we can't reach those thresholds, or just for future content that may come out. But it is what it is, right? On the Dance of War, she places a block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns. This is great. Many champions can place a block debuffs, right? But she also fills the turn meters of all allies by 20%. So it's going to enable you to take more turns in the Hydra Boss or the Doom Tower, like I mentioned before. It's decent, right? I just kind of think that this champion is missing a little something to give it that oomph, right? Maybe like a cleanse would be really nice. Like potentially cleanses all debuffs from all allies and places a block debuffs, and then also fills their turn meters by 20%. This would make it next caliber level, because think about the arena. You can use her in a way like you might use a Skytouch Shaman. You come through, you cleanse off the debuffs, hypothetically you're facing a Hegemon. You then put the block debuffs up so you can't get debuffed, and then you're filling the turn meters, allowing you to take potential the next turns. And I just feel like that would make it so much better, right? Like even in the Hydra Boss, that'd be huge, right? But as it stands, block debuffs, maybe countering the poisons from Head of Blight or anything else that you may need it from. I was even thinking like an immunity set for the arena could be useful, but you could just use someone like Skytouch Shaman in that same position there. With the Hoofbeat's passive, she does fill this champion's turn meter by 5% each time an ally buff is removed, transferred, stolen, or expires. So it's just going to grant turn meter for herself, not your allies. But overall, she's like a turn meter energizer bunny. She's hopping all around the place. And if you're looking for a champion that can grant multiple turns very quickly, and placing decreased resistance so your other champions don't need the high thresholds in specific encounters, then she might be one for you. But if you're more of an endgame player, it might be something for down the line, maybe the accessory dungeon or the new Hydra difficulties. You might be looking for these debuffs, and if you haven't got any on your account and you skipped out on Nari the Lucky, it might be something you might want to consider being a fragment fusion. So okay, let's just break down how I've decided to build this champion today. I've gone with a Guardian build to kind of absorb the damage dealt whilst also healing herself, because I have built her in high sustainability alongside speed just to kind of support our allies in the Hydra Boss or the Doom Tower. And I was considering maybe a Relentless build, but I felt like you might be outrunning the buffs you're putting on her, maybe the block debuffs, and it could play to the advantage of her passive to get more turn meter fill, but it's put her in a sticky situation where she might be losing her buffs that's valuable. So I've decided to go this route today. But also, with the implementation of the changes to artifact sets, the retaliation is now on a 2 artifact set instead of a 4, where it was actually a 35% chance, but it's now a 15% chance to counterattack. And I felt like it's a great filler set for her because she has stealing of buffs on the A1. So every single time that we can go through and counterattack could be very beneficial for that A1 there. And what I've kind of done is I've gone for defense percent, HP percent, speed on the boots. We've gone for a nice blend all around the board of those stats. And then we've gone for accuracy on the banner. We have gone for defense on the amulet with some resistance there. And then we've gone defense on the ring with some HP percent. And the overall stats, we've gone for 60k HP, 3.7k defense, close to 250 speed. Crit rate and crit damage I'm not focusing on, as I did do a bit of a damage test and it was a little bit underwhelming in my opinion. I kind of feel like the value is more coming from the sustainability, the tankiness, and keeping her alive to place her debuffs. Resistance at 250. Of course, if I was going to be bringing in decreased accuracy, I'll be having a lot of value from this against the Hydra. And then the accuracy stats at 300, and I'm going to be bringing in accuracy auras to kind of take off some of that heat as well. So, masteries. Very subjective, I'd say. You could potentially go down to the defense tree, get some counterattacks out for that A1. But I've decided to go for the support tree. Reason being that I felt like rapid response pairs very well with this champion. She's placing those block debuffs, right? So you have that potential to fill turn meter, and that's the theme of her kit. We can also go with arcane celerity because she places decreased resistance. So when those expire, she's going to be increasing turn meter again. So I feel like that synergy is very cool here. We've then got the cycle of magic, potentially reducing the cooldowns of that A2 and getting that out more efficiently. And then we've got the lasting gifts, trying to extend the value of the block debuffs for when she's outlapping it herself with the turn meter fills. And then we've got Master Hexer to extend the value of decreased resistance and keeps that up as much as possible. Also with the War Master for the Hydra Boss or many encounters out there. Before we move into the actual content, I do want to bring up Nari the Lucky. I have mentioned it many times in today's video. And why I said that for players that went for this fusion a while back last year, he actually does steal a random buff on his A1. He does transfer random buffs from enemies to random allies. So there's a very similar theme with the stealing of the buffs, right? But also on the A2, he does decrease accuracy and decrease resistance in the same skill, which technically is a lot better than the other champion, right? With the Greathoof, because you're getting decreased accuracy out there, alleviating the resistance stats on your champions. So for an option, does Nari actually stand as a better one than the Greathoof Loriaca? But the thing is, with Nari, he does the provokes for Head of Decay and the extra buff on his champion for Head of Mischief to be the target with the counterattack. But it's on a 4-turn cooldown, right? So he does play that role. Whereas the Greathoof, if we can find her again, is more of a block debuffs option with turn meter fill, allowing your allies to take more turns. So it basically depends on what you're valuing more in your composition on the ones that you'd be choosing. But obviously different options, maybe using different teams, could definitely still have some use. So firstly, I just want to go into a Doom Tower encounter. And I just want to show, let's just go into the stage. Let's just show the size of this champion first, okay? Before we go into any runs, look at the size of this champion. Walking Tomb Dreng, she could potentially sit on the back of there, and she'd be good to go. She's tiny. Absolutely tiny. Now, if we just do in comparison to... Well, let's just go down to a lower floor. We're getting smacked up. Let's go down here somewhere. So if we put in Cornelia now, bear in mind, this is a Skinwalker cow. Like, literally a cow. Cornelia, can we find you? There she is. So if we go into this now, look at the size difference. It's like hardly anything. It's crazy. Cornelia is a tiny dwarf. Look at the difference. I don't know. I feel like she's smaller than Underpriest Brogni. or the same size or something. I don't know. Do you not feel like it's just the wrong sizing for what she is? But while we're here, let's just showcase the animations. I feel like they're very cool with the A2. It's kind of the bells come down, they shatter around, and it is what it is. And then if we go into the A, let's just go through here. Now with the mechanics here, here's the filling, the turn meters. Very basic, but yeah. Get some more turn meter fills here. And then here, let's just try to steal some buffs. We've got a 50% chance. There we go. We managed to steal one of the buffs. So that's basically the core fundamentals of how the champion would work. And as you see here, there is 5 allies. So hypothetically, if we place it on all of them, we'll be getting a 10 meter fill, but they do have block debuffs up. Okay, so we've just chosen to go with a team like this. We're very heavy on the Skinwalkers here with Coroner and Snake Track. We got Artak in the mix as well to play some cheeky burns. But hopefully we can see the synergy of how well she can perform in these Doom Tower waves. Now, think about players that are really struggling to get the accuracy thresholds to place their debuffs in the higher floors. I remember when I was really struggling with that. Well, decreased resistance is going to alleviate that stress, but you got to remember, it's not a before attacking placement. As you see here, Roxham doesn't have it, and also the other Roxham doesn't have it, being the magic affinity. So this is kind of where I wish where she's missing that oomph, where it cannot be resisted or it places before attacking to kind of reduce that RNG of that happening to players. And that's kind of the downside that I did see with this champion, right? It's not as consistent against specific affinities with the magic, but for every other affinity, you'll be completely fine. But as you see here, we're in one of the highest stages of the Doom Tower. And with that Guardian set, she's absorbing some of that damage from Artak, for instance, and of other allies, and even the ally protection of Snake Track. And she's going to be coming through and stealing buffs and filling turn meters. And I'm not going to say she's the best champion in the game, but the turn meter fill is going to be effective here. So let's just go through the second wave as well. There we go. Good job, Artak. So hopefully here, look, there we go. We got some increased defense going out. We stole the buff there, as you see, from one of the Saitos. Oh, we're getting nuked here. No problems. We should be able to go back through some provokes. Artak. There we go. Play some burns. We're going to need that. We stole some more buffs. We stole another one. Just keep an eye on the turn meter field, guys. She's on the left-hand side there. See that? She's tanking up some ally protection in that Guardian. And I kind of like that set for her, personally. Probably better options out there. You guys let me know. Which ones would you be building Loriaca in if you was using it? There we go. Turn meter fills, block debuffs, allowing us not to take a provoke because we've got that on, right? So we're getting through this pretty okay without a Seer team. So we're at 3 minutes 35. We're just closing up the show, and let's see how much damage came out. See, the damage is underwhelming. We've got her in War Master damage. She is doing a lot of AoE attacks, granting extra turns. We never put her in great damage, but even when I did beforehand, it was just a little bit underwhelming. But for the utility she was bringing in, kind of keeping everyone on top of their turn meter, granting extra turns, turn meter for herself, block debuffs, decrease resistance, you can see where it can come into effect. But Artak pumping out the work here for floor 111. I guess next up, one of the highlights that they kind of spoke about before releasing the champion was for Faction Wars. And of course, she's going to have a tremendous value here. We're going to bring in a bit of a dirty team, pay to win, but try and get this through this as efficiently as possible here. But let's just see how many extra turns we can get against the boss itself. And if you're struggling to bring in those accuracy stats, how it could be useful. There we go. Look at that turn meter fill. 40% or 50% because she placed it on all of the enemies. And it's just going to allow her to keep coming through, taking bonus turns. But you guys let me know. Do you feel like she's just taking extra turns for the sake of it? Or do you feel like it's really helping her out here? It's like she's leading into extra turns, but to do what in a sense? Like if decreased resistance is on already, maybe for like stealing extra buffs or something? I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. Here we go. We just need to clear up some of those allies. I really wish a cleanse would be in here. The block debuffs is going to be nice though for this boss when they do that transfer effect, right? All of these as well, the truth is. There we go, block debuffs coming through. Let's see, are we going to kind of wear this out on time? We stole the buff there. That's nice. Here we go. Block debuffs. We kind of resisted all of those now. So for faction wars, this is what I wanted to showcase. For the boss itself, it is really nice. And maybe granting those extra turns could come into effect for when you get those buffs stolen. So she's about to do it again, right? Oh, we managed to kill them. But we came through with, what was that? 936,000 damage, 164,000 on her. Okay, pretty decent there. And a decent time as well. But it is a bit of a crazy team with the Leorius. So next up, we are in the Hydra Boss on the brutal difficulty. And let's just say hypothetically, you don't have the accuracy stats for your nukers like a Skrank, he's my damage dealer, or a Missionarchy, and you're trying to progress into the brutal, or maybe even the Nightmare, but you just can't find to get the stats. Well, decreased resistance is going to allow you to do so with that accuracy, mitigating it by 50% so you can get those debuffs out. But once again, the downside, let's just say the Head of Torment, he's magic. If you get a weak hit on him, you might not be able to place those debuffs where you want them to. Which is kind of where the 10 meter field does kind of help her out to kind of keep taking it out as many turns as possible. But of course, you can maybe think about Relentless, take extra turns as well. But let's just see a bit of a utility here. We got block debuffs for the Head of Blight with the poisons coming through. Hopefully you can see some of that in action. Alright, so the first turn's not going to be placing it. So you might want to be timing that skill, but we will see it over the course of the battle. There's the decreased resistance. We didn't place it. You see that on the left? On the Head of Decay? Never went up. We got a weak hit there. So now, if we was trying to place debuffs with champions that we was banking on lower accuracy thresholds with, we're going to be having a trouble with that, right? Can we get that decreased resistance on again? Or block debuffs just before Head of Blight goes? There we go. Can we see this in effect? There we go. No poisons going out. So if you're struggling with surviving the poison hits, could be effective there, right? But she wouldn't have taken that turn if she wasn't doing that 10 meter manipulation to stay on top of it. Unfortunately, we didn't have full provoke. I'm getting flashbacks of the faction wars, not faction wars, the Hydra Clash now, where we was getting hard wrecked. All right, here we go. There we go. Block debuffs out again. And hopefully you can see the synergy of how this is going to come into effect here. Now, this isn't nice. Like, this is one of the downsides. I don't like using block debuffs personally in my teams for the Hydra, but I did want him to steal it because now you see how she stole it? So hypothetically, if, let's just say you got block buffs on all of the other heads apart from one and it gets transferred, you have a chance to go through and steal some of those back, right? All right, we need to just free some of those heads. What I'm going to do is I'll let this run out for a little bit. You guys can see the duration of the run. We'll cut it off for about 20 million or so and then speak about how it was going and performing. Let's get into it. So we've just surpassed the 20 million mark, which is what I wanted to showcase. But you can see all of the utility she can bring for a team. I actually reran it because I had really bad RNG in the initial starting up phase. So that's probably why you've seen it start from turn 0 again in the recording. But this time round, the provokes were going out. We had full control of Head of Decay, and she was really keeping us in the fight and actually increasing the turn meter of our coroner. Just like when he's falling a little bit short to place the provoke, she was doing that, cutting him in and allowing us to get that provoke out on time so we didn't get those cleanses. And over the course of a battle, is actually paying off a lot better than I thought it would. But of course, many turn meter options could do that. But as long as you've got full block buffs placement, the block debuffs is actually coming into effect and helping us out a lot here. Oh, we got the eaten by the Head of Torment there. That's probably one of my least favorites, but we should be able to free them pretty soon. And we're stealing buffs still, allowing us to use that passive more efficiently, right? A lot of burns coming out. We might as well just wait until the 1 key now. I believe it's like 29 million or something, right? Can we get it through? Oh, see, this is where, if we had like a nice little cleanse there in that same skill of the Greathoof Loriaca, we'd have been able to cut through, take off that fear, and then be straight back in the fight. This is where I feel like she's just missing that oomph, like I keep saying. But let's just end this battle here. We're pretty close to the 1 key. We'll probably stretch over the mark. But she didn't pump out a crazy amount of damage. Like, it was less than Snick Track. I'm putting that into comparison where he's not built for damage either. She's like on par with someone like a Tuhana Rock in terms of what she pumped out. And the amount of turns she was taking, you can just see how underwhelming the damage can be. But manipulating the damage of everybody else, she helped everyone else take more turns with the turn meter fill. It worked out pretty good here. Let's just free regroup just in case I want to showcase it later on the stream. But yeah, guys, I guess that's going to be all for today's video. If you did enjoy it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help out the channel. And we're trying to reach 30,000. Hopefully we can get there before my birthday in August. And let me know your final thoughts on Greathoof. I feel like she's a middle-of-the-road progression champion with some endgame uses in the right scenarios. Granted that you don't have the gear to make the accuracy thresholds for specific content, such as the Iron Twins or any other content that may be. Or just the future of Raid. We don't know what's being held in the future, right? Could come into fruition. And of course, for the faction war, she's going to be very good as well. I'll catch you guys in a video soon, and peace.